Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is, well, it's a journey deep into World War II history. We're looking at a specific armored clash in North Africa, a really disastrous one for the Americans, that actually reveals something much bigger.
Yeah, it's more than just tactics, isn't it? It sort of peels back the layers on industrial power. The difference between the U.S. approach and, well, Nazi Germany's.
Exactly. We're diving into sources on the German 501st Heavy Panzer Battalion, that awful Battle of Sidi Bouzid, and crucially what the Germans themselves learned from a captured American tank.
We're basically connecting one specific, frankly catastrophic battlefield loss to this much broader crisis in German engineering, something that really shaped the outcome of the war.
Okay, let's just jump right in. February 1943, Battle of Sidi Bouzid in Tunisia. The U.S. 1st Armored Division's Combat Command C, they counterattack.
Right. This is their first major test against experienced German panzer divisions. And critically, they're using the M4 Sherman tank.
A tank that, on paper at least, was technically pretty good, wasn't it? Especially its front armor against the Panzer III's and Voi's they were mostly facing.
In many ways, yes. Definitely superior in some key aspects to the bulk of what the Germans had there.
So here's the shocking bit, the question we need to wrestle with. You've got this solid tank. Statistically, it should hold up, right? But by the end of that day, February 15th, the losses are just unbelievable. Out of 52 Shermans sent in, 46 are lost, destroyed or captured.
46.
That's an 88% loss rate. Over 300 men killed, captured, missing. How on earth do you lose almost 90% of your force when you supposedly have the better tank, or at least a comparable one?
Well, and this is where it gets really fascinating, because when they actually looked at the wreckage afterwards, the story completely changes. It kind of demolishes the myth of German tech just rolling over everything.
Yes, so.
The survey data, the forensics on the knocked-out tanks found that not one single Sherman was penetrated through its frontal armor, the thickest part.
Wait, not one, but
Yeah.
what about the German guns? The high-velocity 75s, the 50s, and everyone talks about the 88, right? The anti-aircraft gun used against tanks.
Yeah.
And the Tigers. Weren't Tigers there?
They were, but the data showed only one Sherman kill could be definitively pinned on an 88. The vast majority, overwhelmingly, were taken out by the smaller 50mm and 75mm rounds.
But you just said those couldn't get through the front.
Exactly, they couldn't, which means the Shermans weren't being hit front on. They were being hit on their weaker sides, their rear. It was a classic, perfectly executed German tank ambush.
Ah, so experienced veterans, the 10th and 21st Panzer Divisions, just outmaneuvered them. Superior tactics, not superior tanks, nullified the M4's advantages.
Precisely. They drew the Americans into a kill zone. But here's the real kicker, the part that actually worried the German high command more in the long run.
Okay.
It was what they learned from analyzing one specific Sherman they captured intact, a tank nicknamed War Daddy 2.
War Daddy 2, okay.
That tank, when they took it apart, proved something fundamental. It proved that American tanks were just vastly more reliable than their own complex machines like the Tiger and the Panther.
So this isn't just about Sidi Bouzid then. It's about this fundamental clash of philosophies, isn't it? German technical optimization versus American industrial reliability.
You've hit it right there. Germany chasing the ultimate spec sheet, America building something that just worked consistently and could be fixed easily.
And that difference, it seems, kind of exposed by this battle and this one captured tank, that ultimately decided who could keep fighting, who could win the long war.
Absolutely. It's about operational readiness, staying in the fight.
Okay, before we get into the details of War Daddy 2's sort of industrial autopsy, we really need to understand the American side of Sidi Bouzid better. How did that tactical disaster even happen?
Right, context is key. The battle itself was February 14th, 17th, 1943. The Germans called it Operation Frühlingswind, Spring Wind.
This was after the Allies landed in North Africa, Operation Porch. They tried to race for Tunis, right? But failed.
Exactly. That initial push stalled. It gave the Axis time to ship reinforcements over and consolidate. You ended up with the 5th Panzer Army, the German-Italian Panzer Army, serious forces, including those veteran division, the 10th and 21st Panzer.
And holding the line against them was the U.S. the Second Corps. Pretty green troops?
Very green, and commanded by Major General Lloyd Friedendahl. His leadership, or lack thereof, is pretty central to this whole disaster.
What was the issue with Friedendahl?
Well, for starters, his command style was detached. to put it mildly. He set up his headquarters over 80 miles behind the front lines in Tebessa.
80 miles.
Years.
80 miles. Apparently deep inside a canyon complex, he had engineers tunnel out for him, more concerned about his own safety, it seems, than commanding effectively.
That distance alone sounds like it would make real-time decisions impossible. How did it affect the units actually doing the fighting?
It led directly to this idea of defensive islands. Friedenthal scattered his units, the 168th Regimental Combat Team, parts of the 1st Armored Division, into these isolated positions across the eastern Dorsale Mountains. Like little pockets. Not connected.
Exactly. Too far apart for mutual support. Basically, sitting ducks for the Germans to pick off one by one using concentrated force. Defeat in detail, it's called.
So the Germans saw this vulnerability.
Oh, absolutely. On February 14th, they pushed through the Faid and Mazilla passes, about 140 tanks, advancing under the cover of a sandstorm. Perfect conditions for an attack.
And the isolated American units.
Quickly got hammered and surrounded. Colonel Thomas Drake, commanding Combat Command A, reported he was cut off. Asked for permission to pull back, regroup.
Makes sense tactically, right? Preserve your force.
You'd think so. But Friedenthal, back in his bunker 80 miles away, refused. Ordered Drake to hold his position and wait for reinforcements.
And those reinforcements were?
Ironically, Combat Command C, the very unit that was about to launch that disastrous counterattack the next day, February 15th.
Oh, man. So CCC's attack on the 15th.
Yeah.
Was it just doomed from the start?
Pretty much. They charged across flat, open desert, no real reconnaissance beforehand, no air cover to speak of, straight into a perfectly laid German trap.
What was waiting for them?
A screen of anti-tank guns, veteran Panther IIIs and IVs positioned to hit their flanks, and crucially, 6 of the new Tiger AB tanks from the 501st Battalion. A wall of fire.
The result we already know. 46 Shermans lost. Over 2,500 American casualties in the wider battle. A total disaster.
Comprehensive defeat. And the sources are clear. Yes, American inexperience and Friedenthal's terrible command were major factors, but it led the Axis commanders to draw a dangerous conclusion.
Which was?
They thought the U.S. Army was fundamentally weak, well-equipped, sure, but poorly led, tactically inept, basically soft.
And that underestimation would come back to bite them later.
Big time. But in the short term, that victory, that feeling of superiority was kind of cemented by capturing War Daddy too. They thought they had proof of American weakness.
But they'd actually captured the key to understanding their own fatal flaw.
Exactly. The smoking gun of their own eventual industrial defeat, sitting right there on the battlefield. USA 3067641. An M4A1 Sherman.
So let's follow War Daddy 2. What happens after its capture? The Germans recognized it was valuable, right? An intact enemy tank.
Oh, yeah. Big prize. And the first thing they did tells you a lot. They decided to drive it from the battlefield to a port 350 kilometers away to ship it back to Germany for analysis.
Okay, 350 kilometers. About 220 miles. Across North African terrain. How did that go?
That's the first shocker. It took them just 4.5 days, and the German crew driving it noted something remarkable. The engine never overheated, the transmission worked smoothly, the final drives, the bits connecting power to the tracks, held up perfectly. No breakdowns.
Which for their own tanks, especially the heavy ones like the Tiger, that would be unusual.
Highly unusual. A Tiger from the 501st attempting that same journey. Through heat and sand, you'd expect multiple breakdowns, days of maintenance, maybe complete immobilization. But the Sherman, it just kept going.
Just worked. Like a reliable car.
Pretty much. They couldn't believe the durability. It was the complete opposite of their own experience with their cutting-edge, complex machines.
So War Daddy 2 gets shipped to Germany. Where does it end up?
The Kummersdorf Proving Ground near Berlin, this was the main Test Center, they gave it the designation Zugkraftwagen 259, Test Vehicle 259, and they spent months taking it apart, running tests.
Trying to find its weaknesses.
Exactly. But instead, they kept finding their own weaknesses reflected back at them. They realized the American design philosophy was fundamentally different.
How so? What did they find?
It wasn't about pushing every single specification to the absolute limit, like the German approach dictated often by Hitler himself, maximize armor, maximize gun.
Okay.
The Sherman prioritized practical things, durability, ease of maintenance, ease of driving. They leveraged decades of experience from the American automotive industry, making reliable cars and trucks for the masses.
So less focus on the absolute peak performance on paper, more on will this actually work consistently in the field, and can an average GI operate it?
You got it. Take the transmission, for example. A perfect illustration. The Sherman had a synchronized manual gearbox, second gear through fifth.
Meaning?
Meaning you didn't need to double clutch like crazy. Shifting was relatively easy, smooth. Any soldier with basic driving skills could handle it without wrecking the gearbox. They could focus on fighting, not wrestling with the transmission.
And the German tanks, like the Panther.
The Panther transmission was notoriously fragile. Drivers needed intense training. They were often told to skip third gear entirely because it failed so often. Imagine that, having to consciously avoid using a gear in combat just to prevent a breakdown.
That's insane. It's like having a sports car you can only drive in second and fourth.
Right. It highlights the difference. The Sherman was like a robust pickup truck. The Panther was like a finicky experimental race car. Brilliant when it worked, but often didn't.
And this fragility extended to other parts, too. You mentioned final drives earlier.
Yes, the final drive's crucial components transferring power. The Sherman used herringbone-cut gears, standard, robust commercial design. Distributes stress really well, lasts a long time.
Simple and strong. And the Panther?
In the quest for maybe some tiny theoretical efficiency gain, they used straight-cut gears. Much more prone to stripping, braking under stress. German field reports are full of catastrophic final drive failures. Panthers breaking down after less than 100 kilometers sometimes.
Just 100 kilometers. That's barely breaking it in.
Exactly. Mechanical failures were taking out more German tanks than enemy fire in some periods. Think about that.
The endurance difference must have been huge then. How long could a Sherman typically run between major overhauls compared to a Panther?
The sources suggest Shermans often exceeded 2,000 kilometers. Easily. The Panther. Even after frantic improvements, they were struggling to get engine life much past 1,000 kilometers. The German High Command was celebrating reliability milestones the Sherman had surpassed from day one.
Wow. And what about production? The Americans were famous for mass production. Did that show up in the analysis too?
Absolutely. They found captured Shermans using different engines, big radial aircraft engines, GM diesels, Ford V8s adapted for tank use.
Variety, okay. But did that cause problems? Parts compatibility.
That was the amazing part now. Despite different power plants, the core components, the interfaces, the parts were highly standardized and interchangeable. You could swap parts between tanks relatively easily. Mass production genius.
Whereas German production, more like bespoke manufacturing.
Yeah, very much so. Constantly tweaking designs, introducing improvements that often just meant more non-standard parts, made field repair and logistics a nightmare. The idea of easily swapping major components between different Panther production runs was largely theoretical for them.
This whole picture of American reliability versus German fragility, did it reach the top? Did the leadership in Germany understand this?
It did, dramatically so. June 1943, Hillersleben Artillery Range, a big demonstration for the armaments minister, Albert Speer, the guy directly responsible to Hitler for war production.
Okay, high-stakes demo. What happened?
They had War Daddy 2, the captured Sherman, drive up a steep, rough test slope, a standard test of mobility. Just climbed it smoothly, no issues.
No.
Right next to it, they had one of Germany's newest, heaviest, most high-tech machines, the 65-ton Ferdinand tank destroyer. Huge gun, massive armor, representing that German focus on ultimate specs.
And the Ferdinand.
It stalled, couldn't make the climb, had to be towed off by recovery vehicles
Ugh.
in front of the armaments minister.
Ouch. That must have made an impression.
A huge one. Speer himself later wrote about it, noting the Sherman's superior cross-country performance wasn't necessarily about better tracks or suspension, but simply that it had a powerful, reliable engine for its weight and was just incredibly well-engineered for practical use.
He saw the strategic problem right there.
He did, and internal German technical reports started confirming it. They admitted the American philosophy, reliability, ease of maintenance, leveraging proven commercial tech was just flat-out superior for winning a long war that depended on keeping machines running in the field.
Their engineering brilliance was being let down by the fact the machines often couldn't get to the battle or stay in it.
Precisely. The field reports were damning. Panther operational readiness rates hovering below 40% for much of 1943. Commanders complaining constantly that mechanical breakdowns, not combat, were their biggest enemy.
And this continued right to the end.
Right to the bitter end. There's a chilling report from January 1945 documenting catastrophic final drive failures across all German tank types, even the supposedly reliable Panzer IV. It said troops were losing confidence, abandoning tanks preemptively because they just expected them to break down.
Wow. They knew they'd likely get stranded.
Yeah, a total loss of faith in the machinery.
So wrapping this up, Sidi Bouzid was a tactical wake-up call for the Americans. They learned, they adapted, they improved tactics, training, even modified the Sherman, right? Added wet stowage for ammo, things like that.
They did. They learned hard lessons about combined arms tactics, command, and even tank design tweaks.
But the analysis of War Daddy 2 was almost the reverse for the Germans. It confirmed a deep, systemic industrial limitation. It proved that cutting-edge tech is useless if it's too fragile to fight consistently.
Absolutely. Reliability wasn't just a future for the Americans. It was the bedrock of their whole operational doctrine. Keep it simple, keep it running, keep it fighting.
And that lesson stuck, didn't it? Even after the war.
It really did. Decades later, when West Germany was designing its first post-war main battle tank, the Leopard 1, the designers consciously rejected the old Panther-Tiger philosophy of prioritizing maximum specs above all else.
What did they prioritize instead?
Reliability, maintainability, ease of operation. They deliberately adopted the principles that made the much-maligned Sherman, in the end, a war-winning tank. They learned the lesson from War Daddy 2.
Which leaves us with a thought, maybe, for you listening. If mechanical reliability and the sheer ability to sustain operations were arguably decisive factors in World War II, what are the non-technical vulnerabilities today?
Yeah, think about modern advanced military hardware. Is it logistics, supply chains, the complexity of software, specialized training pipelines? What's the modern equivalent of the Panther's final drive failure? Where's the hidden Achilles heel?
Because, at the end of the day, a weapon that works when you need it, even if it's not perfect on paper, still beats the theoretically superior weapon that's stuck in the workshop. That seems to be the timeless lesson here.
That's the lesson of Sidi Bouzid and War Daddy 2.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.